the icy depths of the Arctic, a team of explorers uncovers a chilling discovery. A creature, ancient and wolf-like, perfectly preserved in ice. Ignoring legends of a guardian of the ice, they bring the creature back to their base, only to unleash a series of terrifying events. Haunted by visions, strange noises, and an eerie, unshakable connection to the creature, the team faces a nightmare beyond comprehension. As the ice melts, releasing the creature, an ancient prophecy unfolds, heralding a horror that transforms the surrounding wolves into monstrous beings. Trapped and fighting for survival, the team must confront the unimaginable truth. Their discovery was a seal holding back a primal force. This fast-paced, heart-pounding story plunges you into a world where the lines between myth and reality blur, and mankind's arrogance unleashes an age-old terror upon the earth. The bitter Arctic wind howled across the vast, desolate landscape, a frozen world of white stretching to the horizon. Dr. Elena Marquez peered out from the small window of the rugged, all-terrain vehicle, her eyes scanning the ice field. Beside her, Dr. Jacob Harding, the expedition leader, navigated the vehicle through the treacherous terrain with a practiced hand. "Almost there," Jacob announced, his voice barely audible over the roar of the engine and the wind. The satellite images showed something unusual in this sector. The team, a diverse group of scientists and adventurers, had been drawn together for this expedition by the lure of the unknown. Dr. Marquez, a paleobiologist, was joined by Dr. Liam O'Connor, a glaciologist, and Maya Soto, a geological engineer. They were accompanied by two seasoned explorers, Hakim Nkrumah and Anya Petrova, experts in Arctic survival. As they drew closer to the coordinates, the monotony of the ice was broken by a dark shape protruding from the glacier. Jacob brought the vehicle to a halt, and the team disembarked, each member pulling their heavy coats tighter against the cold. "Look at that," Liam breathed out, his words turning to mist. They approached the object cautiously, the ice crunching under their boots. It was a large, dark form encased in the clear blue ice of the glacier. The closer they got, the more distinct it became. A creature, perfectly preserved, its fur visible through the transparent ice. "This is incredible," Elena said, her eyes wide with excitement and scientific curiosity. "It looks like a wolf, but different." Jacob nodded, examining the ice. "It's been here for centuries at least. Look at the layering of the glacier around it." Maya began setting up her equipment, preparing to take samples of the ice, while Hakim and Anya surveyed the area for any risks. "This could be a major discovery," Jacob said, turning to the team. "We need to document everything. Elena, Liam, can you take the lead on the analysis?" Eleanor nodded, already lost in thought. "We'll need to be careful. This could be a new species or even something we can't even imagine." As they set to work, the wind seemed to carry a low, mournful howl, echoing across the icy expanse. They all paused for a moment, glancing at each other, before dismissing it as trick of the wind. But as the day wore on and the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ice, a feeling of unease settled over the team. They were unaware that their discovery had awakened something ancient, something that had been waiting, frozen in time. The legend of the guardian of the ice was about to become a chilling reality. The Arctic sun had begun its slow descent, casting a cold, golden light over the frozen landscape. The team worked tirelessly, using precision tools to cut a large block of ice around the mysterious creature. They moved with a sense of urgency, aware that the setting sun brought with it plummeting temperatures and the dangers of the polar night. "We need to keep it stable," Liam cautioned, as he and Maya carefully monitored the ice's temperature. Any change could damage the specimen. With the creature securely encased in its icy cocoon, the team loaded the block onto a sled attached to their vehicle. As they began their journey back to the base, a palpable tension hung in the air, a mix of excitement and an unspoken apprehension. As the landscape blurred past them, each team member was lost in their thoughts, replaying the day's incredible discovery. However, it wasn't long before the strange occurrences began. Elena was the first to notice. As she glanced over her notes, a faint whisper seemed to echo in her ears, like a distant conversation carried by the wind. She shook her head, dismissing it as fatigue. Later, as the sky darkened, Jacob, navigating through the icy terrain, thought he saw a shadow dart across the path ahead. He blinked, and it was gone. He muttered to himself, attributing it to the strain on his eyes. The most unsettling incident happened to Anya. As they set up camp for the night, she felt a sharp sting on her arm. Pulling up her sleeve, she discovered 3 long, superficial scratches, as if from an animal's claws. But there was nothing nearby, no explanation for how they had appeared. "That's impossible," Hakim said, examining her arm. "There's nothing out here that could have done this." The team exchanged nervous glances, each recalling the local legends about the Guardian of the Ice. They tried to rationalize the events as coincidences, the product of an overactive imagination, fueled by the discovery and the isolation of the Arctic. However, as they continued their journey, the strange occurrences only intensified. The sound of a distant howling, indistinct whispers, fleeting shadows in the corner of their eyes. Each incident chipped away at their skepticism, replaced by a creeping sense of dread. That night, as they huddled in their tents, the howling seemed closer, more personal, as if calling to each of them. In their dreams, they saw flashes of their past, their fears and regrets, each vision accompanied by the shadowy silhouette of a wolf. By the time they reached their base, the mood had shifted from triumph to unease. The once exciting discovery now felt like a burden, a source of unexplained phenomena that defied scientific explanation. As they prepared to store the ice-encased creature in the facility, each member of the team couldn't shake the feeling that they had brought back something more than just an ancient relic. They had awakened something that had been dormant for centuries, something that was now intimately connected to them. The Guardian of the Ice had marked them, and its legacy was only beginning to unfold. The Arctic night enveloped the research base in a deep, silent darkness, broken only by the occasional creaking of the ice. Inside the facility, the team settled in for the night, each member wrestling with their own uneasy thoughts. The block of ice containing the creature was secured in a specially prepared cold storage room, its eerie silhouette barely visible through the frosted glass. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. I must extend my deepest, most sinister thanks to those souls brave enough to support our chilling journey. Your contributions, kindred spirits, are the lifeblood of our channel. They help me continue to craft the haunting tales that send shivers down your spine and keep you awake at night, pondering what lurks in the shadows. If you too find yourself captivated by our chilling chronicles and wish to help the channel, consider clicking the thanks button below. Your support, dear viewer, is not just a contribution. It's a lifeline that allows me to continue weaving these terrifying tales just for you. Let's embrace the darkness once more. Let's get back to the shadows Unknown to the others, Dr. Liam O'Connor found himself unable to sleep. Restless and haunted by the day's strange occurrences, he slipped out of his bunk and made his way to the storage room. Standing before the ice-encased creature, Liam felt an inexplicable pull, an urge to just watch and be in its presence. Hours passed. The cold room, lit only by the dim light that cast long, haunting shadows. Liam stood motionless, his eyes fixated on the creature, hardly blinking, as if in a trance. The creature's ancient, frozen eyes seemed to stare back, piercing through the icy barrier and into his soul. The next morning, the team gathered for breakfast, but Liam's absence was quickly noticed. Elena and Jacob decided to check on him, thinking he might be ill or still resting. As they entered the storage room, they found him standing there, still as a statue, his eyes locked on the creature.
"Liam,"
Elena called out, concern lacing her voice.
"are you okay?"
There was no response. Jacob approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder.
"Liam, snap out of it, man."
Liam remained unresponsive, his gaze unwavering. With a sense of urgency, Jacob gently shook him, but the moment he was moved, Liam's body went limp, collapsing to the cold floor. Alarmed, the team quickly gathered around. Liam was alive, his breathing steady, but he was unresponsive, lost in a deep trance.
"What happened to him?"
Maya asked, her voice tinged with fear.
"It's like he's been hypnotized or something,"
Hakeem observed, examining Liam.
"We need to get him to the med bay now,"
Jacob ordered, his voice carrying the weight of their shared apprehension. As they carefully transported Liam, the team couldn't help but feel the creature's presence looming over them. Its ancient, mystical aura seemed to have seeped out of the ice, infecting their reality. With Liam safely in the medbay, the team faced a dilemma. They couldn't leave the base with him in this condition, but they also couldn't stay with the creature's mysterious influence growing stronger.
"We have to transport them both,"
Elena asserted.
"Whatever is affecting Liam might be connected to the creature. We need to get them both to a facility where we can study this phenomenon."
The decision was made. They would transport Liam and the creature to a more equipped research facility. As they prepared for the journey, each team member felt the weight of uncertainty and fear. They were no longer just scientists on an expedition. They had become guardians of an ancient legacy, a legacy that was now intertwined with their own fate. The wind howled outside the research base, a bleak chorus to the rising tension inside. The team, already on edge from the strange happenings and Liam's condition, hurried to prepare for their emergency departure to the nearest medical facility. But as they gathered their gear and made their way to the vehicle bay, a chilling sight stopped them dead in their tracks. Through the reinforced windows, they saw them, hundreds of wolves encircling the base. Their eyes glowed ominously in the dim Arctic light, and a collective snarling filled the air, a sound both terrifying and otherworldly.
"Impossible. There aren't this many wolves in the region,"
Jacob muttered in disbelief. The team watched in horror as the wolves paced, their growls a clear warning. It was as if they were guarding the base, preventing any escape. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the team sprung into action, securing all entrances and windows. The base, designed to withstand Arctic storms, became their fortress against the unnatural siege outside. As they strategized their next move, Dr. Elena Marquez noticed Dr. O'Connor's condition worsening, his body convulsing slightly as if in response to the howling outside. It was then that Maya, the geological engineer, began to act erratically. Her eyes were wide, her breathing heavy.
"They're calling to me,"
she whispered, her voice distant.
"The wolves, they won't harm me. They speak to me."
The team tried to calm her, but Maya's behavior became more frantic. She rummaged through a locker, pulling out a flare gun. "I'm leaving," she declared, her voice laced with a wild, unsettling conviction. "They won't harm me. They want me to join them." Jacob tried to reason with her. "Maya, it's not safe. Whatever you think you're hearing, it's not real." But Maya was beyond reason. She pointed the flare gun at the team, her hand shaking. "Stay back. I have to go to them." Ignoring their pleas, Maya opened the hatch and stepped outside into the howling blizzard, the wolves immediately silencing as if acknowledging her presence. The team watched, frozen in shock, as Maya walked towards the wolves. For a moment, there was an eerie calm. Then, a horrific scream shattered the silence, followed by the frenzied snarls of the wolves. The team rushed to the window, only to see a chaotic mass of wolves with no sign of Maya. The harsh reality of their situation crashed down on them. The wolves were not protectors, but predators, drawn and influenced by the same mysterious force that had captivated Maya and Liam. As they retreated from the window, each member of the team felt a deep, sinking dread. They were trapped not only by the wolves outside, but by the unknown force emanating from the creature within. The Guardian of the Ice had unleashed a primal terror, and the team was caught in the heart of it, their survival hanging by a thread. In the confines of the base, the atmosphere was heavy with fear and desperation. The team huddled in the main room, the sound of the wolves outside a constant, unnerving presence. "We need to make a run for it," Hakim suggested, his voice strained. "Let's leave that thing here, jump in the truck, and plow through them." Jacob shook his head, the weight of leadership pressing on him. "It's not like the movies. We might get through one or two wolves, but their bodies will just clog up the engine. We're stuck." "It's that thing in the ice," Elena said, her voice a mix of fear and anger. "It's caused all of this." The team's gaze shifted to the storage room where the creature lay, still encased in ice. Dr. Liam O'Connor, now in a deeper trance-like state, was under constant watch. Anya, feeling the need to do something, anything, volunteered to keep an eye on the creature. As she entered the cold storage room, the chill air bit at her skin, but it was the sight of the creature that sent shivers down her spine. Sitting there, staring at the wolf-like entity, Anya felt its frozen eyes piercing through her. A sense of dread filled her, the fear of succumbing to the same fate as Liam overwhelming her thoughts. She couldn't bear the creature's gaze any longer. In a moment of panic, Anya grabbed an electric blanket from a supply shelf, a remnant from their earlier, more mundane concerns of keeping warm. She draped it over the ice block, covering the creature from view. It was a small comfort, a momentary relief from the creature's haunting presence. But in her haste and distress, Anya didn't realize the blanket was still plugged in and switched on. As she left the room, the warmth from the electric blanket began to slowly seep into the ice, unnoticed by the team preoccupied with their dire situation. Outside, the wolves' howling took on a fevered pitch, as if sensing the change occurring within the base. Inside, the team discussed futile plans of escape, unaware of the thawing process now initiated by the electric blanket. As hours passed, the ice surrounding the creature began to melt, drop by drop. The ancient entity, long trapped in its frozen prison, was gradually being released, not by intention, but by a simple, unintended act of human fear. In the storage room, a slight movement, almost imperceptible, occurred within the ice. The creature, the Guardian of the Ice, was stirring, its awakening heralded by a deeper, more ominous howl from the wolves outside. The team, still debating their escape, remained oblivious to the pivotal shift happening just rooms away. The true horror of their situation was yet to be revealed, as the boundaries between legend and reality continued to blur. The team, once bound by scientific curiosity, now found themselves united by fear and desperation. Huddled together, they attempted to formulate a plan, their options limited by the howling siege outside. Suddenly, a thunderous howl, louder and more primal than any they had heard before, echoed through the base, freezing them in place. "It came from inside," Elena whispered, her voice laced with dread. Without a word, they raced towards the storage room, their hearts pounding in their chests. Bursting through the door, they were met with an unnerving sight. The ice block was no longer there, just a puddle of water and the electric blanket, carelessly discarded on the floor. Large, wet footprints led away from the puddle, vanishing into the corridor. "It's free," Hakim exclaimed, his voice a mix of fear and disbelief. Jacob, his face pale but determined, took charge. "We must find it before it finds us." Splitting up, each team member cautiously ventured through the base's labyrinthine corridors, their flashlights casting long, eerie shadows. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by their own shaky breaths and the distant howling of the wolves outside. Anya, her flashlight trembling in her hand, searched the dormitories. Each room was empty, the beds untouched, the silence unsettling. Her heart raced with every creak and groan of the base. Hakim and Elena moved through the mess hall and kitchen, checking every corner, under tables and behind doors. Nothing but the echo of their own footsteps greeted them. Jacob and Liam, the latter, still in a daze but able to walk, explored the equipment and supply rooms. Rows of shelves with gear and provisions offered numerous hiding places, but each search turned up empty. The creature was elusive, almost ghost-like in its movements. As they searched, a chilling thought crept into their minds. What if the creature wasn't just physically free, but also unleashed its influence more powerfully throughout the base? In the communications room, Maya, hoping to send a distress signal, found the equipment strangely malfunctioning, the screens flickering with static. She felt a cold breath on her neck and spun around, only to find emptiness. The base, once a haven of scientific endeavor, had transformed into a haunted maze, a place of shadows and unspoken fears. The creature, the ancient guardian of the ice, was not just a physical entity. It was a force, an enigma that defied their understanding of nature and science. As the team regrouped, the realization dawned on them. The creature was more than they could handle. It was not just a being of flesh and blood, but something ethereal, a relic of a time when the world was wilder, more mysterious. They stood in the dimly lit corridor, the weight of their situation bearing down on them. The creature was somewhere in the base, possibly watching them, biding its time. The howling outside continued, a relentless reminder of the nightmare they were trapped in. Their plan to find the creature had failed, leaving them with more questions than answers, and a growing fear of what the night would bring. The guardian of the ice had claimed their base as its domain, and they were the uninvited guests, struggling to survive until dawn. The shrill sound of the base's entrance alarm sliced through the tense silence, startling the already on-edge team. Something was triggering the sensors, either attempting to enter or escape the facility. They moved as one, a collective force driven by a blend of fear and the need to know, racing towards the entrance. Bursting through the corridor and into the entrance hall, they skidded to a halt. The heavy door was ajar, the icy Arctic wind blasting through the opening. Peering outside, they saw it, the outline of the creature, its form both majestic and terrifying, moving with a purposeful stride towards the wolves. Jacob quickly moved to secure the door, shutting out the biting cold and the unknown. "Are we safe now?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper, reflecting a mixture of relief and lingering fear. Before anyone could answer,
The scene outside took a shock in turn. The wolves, as if in a coordinated attack, pounced on the creature. The team watched, horrified, as the wolves savagely attacked, their howls and snarls filling the night. But then, something even more terrifying happened. The wolves that had first bitten into the creature's ancient flesh began to change. Their bodies contorted and expanded, muscles bulging, growing larger, more humanoid. One by one, they stood on two legs, their faces elongating into grotesque wolf-like forms, but with a horrifying humanoid twist. "Werewolves," Hakim muttered in disbelief, his voice a mix of awe and terror. The team watched, frozen, as more and more wolves underwent the grotesque transformation. What had started as a pack of hundreds of wolves was now an army of werewolves, creatures of legend and nightmare. The realization of what they had unleashed hit them with full force. The creature, the guardian of the ice, hadn't just been a guardian against humans, but a seal, a lock, keeping an ancient and terrifying power at bay. And now, that power was free, embodied in the monstrous forms of the transformed wolves. "We have to warn someone," Elena said, her voice urgent. "The world needs to know what's happening here." But their communication equipment was still malfunctioning, leaving them isolated, with only each other to rely on. The base, once a refuge, now felt like a fragile shell, vulnerable to the horrors lurking outside. The transformed wolves, their howls now a mix of the animalistic and the eerily human, prowled the perimeter, their intent unknown. The team, drawn together by their shared ordeal, realized they were no longer just scientists. They were survivors, witnesses to a horror that defied understanding. As they retreated from the door, their minds raced with questions. What were these creatures capable of? Could they be stopped? And what role did the team have to play in the unfolding nightmare? The night stretched on, the howling outside a constant reminder of the terror just beyond the walls. The ancient blood of the Guardian had awakened a legacy that the world was not prepared for, and the team at the heart of it all braced for what was to come. The wail of alarms filled the base, a cacophony of warning that drowned out even the howling wind and the monstrous cries outside. Lights flashed, sensors blared, indicating breaches at multiple points. The team, already on the brink of despair, realized with a sinking heart that their sanctuary was being invaded. "One by one, the barriers are falling," Jacob said, his voice hollow as he monitored the security feeds. The screens showed dark, hulking figures, smashing through doors and windows, the transformed wolves, now nightmarish werewolves, infiltrating the base. Panic set in as the team scrambled to barricade themselves in the control room. They pushed furniture against the door, knowing deep down that their efforts were feeble against the supernatural strength of their assailants. Outside the reinforced door, the sounds of the base being torn apart were intermingled with the guttural growls of the werewolves. The team huddled together, weapons in hand, but their eyes betrayed the truth. They knew there was no fighting off this onslaught. As the first bangs against their makeshift barricade echoed through the room, Elena, her eyes wide with realization, spoke up above the din. The creature in the ice. It wasn't just a guardian. It was a seal, a lock on an ancient prophecy. Hakim nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. The prophecy of the beast inheriting the earth. We've unleashed it. They recalled the local legends and the ancient texts they had briefly studied. Stories of a time when beasts ruled the earth, of a prophecy foretelling their return. The creature, frozen in the ice, had been a sentinel, holding back a primal force that mankind was never meant to encounter. "But we intervened," Maya whispered, her voice trembling. "We broke the seal too soon.
without understanding. Their thoughts were cut short as the door began to give way under the relentless assault. One by one, the team members embraced their fate. Their screams soon joined in the chaotic symphony that filled the icy air. In the end, the base fell silent, save for the eerie howls of the new rulers of the Arctic night. The prophecy had come to pass, a cautionary tale of man's interference with the ancient and unknown. The Earth had inherited a new, terrifying legacy, birthed from the ice that man had so carelessly unshackled. Far away from civilization, under the uncaring gaze of the stars, the base stood as a silent testament to the folly of mankind, a reminder that some secrets are meant to remain buried, and some legacies are too powerful for the world to bear. In the shadowed corners of a modern city, Alex Dawson's life spirals into a chilling nightmare. Plagued by haunting visions and a ghostly ancestor, he confronts a terrifying possibility. Is he the next incarnation of the infamous Wolfman? As reality warps into horror, Alex's descent into madness leaves us questioning. Where does the line between myth and mind truly lie? Dive into a gripping tale where ancestral curses and psychological terror intertwine, blurring the boundaries of the possible and the unimaginable. Welcome to the shadow of the full moon. Dare to uncover the truth behind the howl. Chapter 1. The Echoes of Failure. The neon lights of the city flickered in the reflection of a puddle as Alex Dawson, a figure of modern disillusionment, trudged through the bustling streets of downtown. His scowl, as much a part of him as his shadow, deepened with every step towards the cramped apartment he called home. Inside, the walls were adorned with posters of vintage rock bands, and the air was stale with the scent of fast food and unfulfilled ambitions. Alex slumped into his worn-out armchair, the springs creaking in protest as he flicked on the TV, his constant companion in a life marked by inertia. His phone buzzed relentlessly with notifications, a digital testament to his voracious appetite for social media. With a lazy swipe, he opened his latest rant, a cascade of words that blamed the world for his stagnant life. Another day, wasted thanks to my boss's incompetence, he typed furiously. Why is it so hard to find people who actually understand what they're doing? He hit post, the familiar surge of self-righteous anger warming him momentarily. His feed was a litany of complaints about his job, his lack of romantic success, the city's traffic. Never once did he consider his own role in these failings. As he scrolled through the reactions to his post, a sense of hollow satisfaction filled him. His friends' comments ranged from sympathetic to encouraging, but none dared to challenge his narrative. They knew Alex too well. He was always the victim, never the culprit. In his dimly lit living room, surrounded by mementos of a life half-lived, Alex was a king in a self-made castle of denial. He reveled in his unchallenged opinions and unexamined life, unaware that the full moon rising outside was about to cast a long, dark shadow over his world. As the clock ticked towards midnight, the room seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper. Unseen forces stirred, awakening an ancient lineage, a legacy long buried under layers of modern cynicism and self-entitlement. But for now, Alex remained blissfully ignorant, a puppet, unaware of the strings about to be pulled by the ghostly hands of his past. Chapter 2. The Gypsy Camp in the Shadows. The soft glow of the computer screen illuminated Alex's face as he scrolled through his social media feed, the night outside his window deep and still. A post from an online friend, Mark, caught his eye. Just traced my family tree back to the 1800s. Can't believe I have aristocratic ancestors, Mark's post boasted, complete with a link to the genealogy website he used. Intrigued, despite himself, Alex clicked the link. "Might as well see if there's anything interesting in my family tree," he muttered, expecting little. The website was user-friendly, and within minutes, Alex entered his family details. He hit the search button, a part of him secretly hoping for something remarkable. The results loaded, revealing a history far from what Alex had hoped for. His ancestors were not nobles or famed scholars, but a line of Romani gypsies. The page detailed their nomadic lifestyle, deeply ingrained in folklore and mysticism. Gypsies, huh? Great. Not even a hint of fame or fortune. Alex scoffed, his disappointment evident. Yet, a small part of the site caught his eye, a section linking Romani culture to legends of werewolves, believed to be protectors and sometimes cursed being among their tribes. Typical, he grumbled, closing his laptop with a sense of unfulfilled curiosity. He went to bed, his mind inadvertently dwelling on the new information. That night, Alex found himself in a vivid dream. He was sitting by a crackling fire, the night air filled with the sounds of a gypsy camp. The wagons were ornately decorated, forming a circle around him, their colours vibrant, even in the moonlit darkness. The location was remote, surrounded by dense forests and the mysterious hum of nature. He noticed something peculiar. All the wagons were locked from the inside, as if the inhabitants were protecting themselves from something. He felt a strange sense of isolation, being the only one outside. An old man emerged from the shadows, his face weathered and wise. He sat down beside Alex, and they talked. The conversation was mundane at first, but as the night deepened, Alex noticed a change in the old man. His features began to twist and contort, his body enlarging. The transformation was horrific, yet fascinating. The old man turned into a massive, terrifying werewolf, his eyes glowing with a feral light. Alex tried to run, but it was too late. The werewolf lunged at him, its growl deafening. The shock and fear were overwhelming, jolting Alex awake in his bed, his heart racing and sweat beading on his forehead. "Only a dream," he panted, trying to calm himself, but a lingering sense of unease stayed with him, a shadow from the past reaching out into his modern, disbelieving world. Chapter 3. The Reflection in the Screen. The first rays of dawn were creeping through the blinds when Alex, still shaken from his dream, found himself in front of his computer again. His fingers flew across the keys, a frenzied search for werewolves filling the screen. He stumbled upon a site detailing lycanthropy, the mythical or psychological condition of a human transforming into a wolf. The website described it as a complex interplay of folklore and psychopathology, where individuals believe themselves to be, or actually transform into, wolves. A curious thought nagged at Alex's mind. Could his ancestors have suffered from this condition? The idea seemed ludicrous, yet it lingered stubbornly. He sat, lost in thought, until a glance at the clock jolted him back to reality. "Oh crap," he muttered, realizing he was late for work again. Rushing through the morning traffic, Alex arrived at his job, his boss, Mr. Henderson, already waiting for him. "This is the 5th time, Alex," Mr. Henderson said sternly, pulling him into the office. "This won't do." But something had shifted in Alex. The anger that bubbled inside him was different, fiercer. "Don't you dare speak to me like that," he snarled. "If it wasn't for me and the other workers, you'd have no business. You just take as much as you can and pay us a pittance. We deserve more." "Really?" Mr. Henderson replied, his demeanor calm and collected. "Tell me, Alex, what risks did you take to create this business? Did you invest your life savings, put your house on the line, build something from nothing that keeps 40 people employed? No, I didn't think so. If you leave, the business will go on. But if I close it,
You have nothing." His words were like a mirror, reflecting a reality Alex had never considered. The philosophy behind them spoke of the creator's risk and vision, the foundation upon which workers thrived, a concept that Alex, in his blind entitlement, had never acknowledged. Dismissed and suspended for his outburst, Alex returned home, seething. He unleashed his frustration online, ranting about capitalist exploitation and how workers should control and evenly distribute company profits. His followers rallied behind him, fueling his indignation, but as he shut down his computer, the screen turned black, reflecting his face. It was not the face of a disgruntled worker, but something else, a distorted, wolf-like visage. The sight stopped him cold. Was he imagining it? Or was the curse of lycanthropy real? Shaken, Alex pondered the man in his dream. The parallels were unsettling. Could he, like his ancestor, be afflicted with this ancient condition? The possibility was both terrifying and enthralling. In the silence of his room, the line between reality and myth blurred. Alex was caught in a web of psychological turmoil, the suspense of his true nature, whether human or beast, hanging in the balance. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. I must extend my deepest, most sinister thanks to those souls brave enough to support our chilling journey. Your contributions, kindred spirits, are the lifeblood of our channel. They help me continue to craft the haunting tales that send shivers down your spine and keep you awake at night, pondering what lurks in the shadows. If you too find yourself captivated by our chilling chronicles and wish to help the channel, consider clicking the thanks button below. Your support, dear viewer, is not just a contribution. It's a lifeline that allows me to continue weaving these terrifying tales just for you. Let's embrace the darkness once more. Let's get back to the shadows. The walls of his apartment felt like they were closing in on Alex. Alone, suspended from work, his mind became a battleground, teetering on the edge of reality and delusion. The reflection he had seen in the computer screen haunted him, its beastly image seared into his mind. With each passing hour, vivid images tormented him. He saw himself running through dense, shadowy forests under the moonlight, the sensation of fur bristling against his skin, feeling unnervingly real. He could almost hear the low growls escape in his throat, the wild, primal instinct within him surfacing in these hallucinations. Was this the awakening of a dormant curse, or the unraveling of a mind long oppressed by denial and blame? The idea of lycanthropy, once a distant myth, now seemed a tangible threat lurking in his very blood. His dreams were no refuge, filled with haunting visions of the gypsy camp, the old man's transformation, and now his own metamorphosis. Each morning he awoke in a cold sweat, his heart pounding, unable to shake the feeling that he was losing his grip on sanity. The isolation of his apartment amplified his fears. The ticking of the clock, the creaking of the floorboards, even his own breathing sounded ominous, as if signaling the approach of something sinister. His own reflection became a source of dread, a constant reminder of the beast he feared he was becoming. As the full moon approached, his anxiety escalated. He found himself pacing restlessly at night, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and terror. Was he truly inheriting the curse of his ancestors? Or was this the culmination of years of repressed anger and self-loathing? The suspense was maddening. Each moment was a battle against the fear of transformation, the fear that he might lose himself to a creature of the night. The line between reality and madness blurred, leaving Alex trapped
in a chilling limbo of psychological horror. The chapter closes with Alex, wide-eyed, staring at the full moon from his window. Is Alex about to undergo a real transformation, or is it merely the descent into his own personal madness? The terror of the unknown grips him in a haunting dance of suspense and dread. Chapter 5. The Unravelling. The sharp, insistent knock at the door pierced through the eerie silence of Alex's apartment. Startled, his heart racing, he stumbled to answer. Standing there was the woman from the apartment below, annoyance etched on her face. "What's with all the banging and constant walking back and forth?" she demanded. "We're trying to sleep. Some of us have work in the morning." Alex felt a surge of fury, but it was quickly overshadowed by a deeper, more primal fear. He glanced down at his hands and saw, to his horror, thick black fur sprouting from his skin. His mind reeled in disbelief, unable to comprehend the nightmare unfolding before his eyes. He staggered away from the door, leaving it ajar. The woman, concern replacing her irritation, followed him inside. "Are you okay? You look terrible," she asked, stepping cautiously closer, but Alex was beyond reach. He felt his body contorting, reshaping. Fur covered his arms, and he sensed his face twisting into something monstrous. A guttural snarl escaped his lips as he turned to face the woman, now seeing her through the eyes of what he believed to be a fully transformed werewolf. With a predatory lunge, he attacked, teeth bared and claws extended. Her screams filled the room as he bit and clawed, lost in a frenzy of violence. But then, in the heat of the assault, Alex's gaze caught his reflection in the mirror. There was no werewolf, only Alex, his face twisted with madness, his body covered in blood. Beneath him lay the woman, lifeless, marred with bite marks and scratches. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, rushed in and subdued him. Alex, still gripped by delusion, screamed, "I am a werewolf!" as they held him down. Later, in the sterile confines of a police cell, Alex's cries echoed off the walls. "It wasn't me. I changed into a werewolf," he shouted, but the officer outside only shook his head. "We have the right one here," he muttered, dismissing the ravings of a man lost to his own madness. The chapter closes with Alex alone, the cold reality setting in. The beast he feared, the curse he believed in, was nothing more than a manifestation of his fractured psyche. The horror of what he had done, the life he had taken, lay heavy on him, a burden far more terrifying than any mythical curse. Chapter 6. The Ghosts and the Shadow. In the bleakness of his cell, Alex sat huddled in a corner, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion. The events of the night played over in his mind like a macabre film, each frame etched with horror and disbelief. As he grappled with the reality of his actions, a chilling presence filled the cell. From the shadows emerged a figure, the ghost of his great-great-grandfather, the original Wolfman. The ghost was a mere whisper of a man, his features blurred, yet unmistakably wolf-like. "You've unleashed the beast, Alex," the ghostly figure spoke, his voice a haunting echo from the past. "The curse that runs in our blood, the beast within, it has been awakened." Alex, shivering in the cold cell, felt a surge of terror. Was the ghost real, or another figment of his fractured mind? Did I really become a werewolf?" he stammered. "The beast is not in the blood, but in the soul," the ghost replied, his form flickering like a candle flame. "It's the rage, the blame, the refusal to see the truth about oneself. That's the real curse." Outside the cell, a police officer on his rounds paused, noticing Alex. He watched, perplexed, as Alex seemed to be conversing with thin air, his gestures frantic and face twisted with anguish. Back inside, the ghost continued. Your transformation was not of flesh, but of spirit. The monster you became was born of your own inner turmoil. Alex's heart raced as he tried to process the ghost's words. Was the transformation a physical reality or a metaphorical manifestation of his own inner demons? The ghost began to fade, his final words hanging in the air. The beast can be tamed, Alex, but only if you confront it. Only if you face the truth within. As the ghost vanished, Alex was left in haunting silence, his mind a tumult of thoughts. The lines between reality and illusion, between man and monster, had never been more blurred. Outside the cell, the officer shook his head, muttering about the strange behavior of the man inside, talking to himself. Must be losing it, he thought, unaware of the spectral visitor that had just departed. The chapter closes with Alex alone, the echo of the ghost's words resonating in his mind. We are left to ponder the true nature of Alex's transformation. Was it a physical metamorphosis, or the manifestation of a tormented psyche? The ambiguity leaves a lingering sense of horror, the shadow of the Wolfman's curse, eternally hovering between the realms of the real and the unreal. Now, dear reader, we must ponder the tale of Alex. Do you believe he truly became a werewolf, or did he succumb to his own inner demons and madness? Is it possible for a man to transform into a beast, or is the human mind more easily swayed by circumstance and its own dark recesses? Consider the mind of Alex, devoid of a creation, relying solely on others for his sense of worth and direction. Such a mind is like fertile soil for the seeds of doubt and delusion. The essence of a fulfilling life, you see, lies in one's ability to create, to contribute something unique and valuable to the world. A life without this creative endeavor is hollow, easily swayed by the winds of circumstance. The story of Alex serves as a cautionary tale. It invites us to question the nature of reality and the power of the human psyche. It urges us to reflect on our own lives, on the importance of personal responsibility and the pursuit of a meaningful existence through our own efforts. As we close this chapter, we are left to contemplate these themes. Was Alex a victim of a supernatural curse, or a prisoner of his own unexamined life? The answer, perhaps, lies not in the story, but in our interpretation of it. And so, we end our tale. May it linger in your thoughts, challenging your perceptions of reality and the power of the human mind. In the dead of night, under a blood-red moon, a deadly game unfolds within the secluded woods of an opulent estate. Wealthy thrill-seekers capture innocent victims, releasing them as prey for a savage werewolf they hold captive. But their latest prey, Lucas, is not what he seems. As the full moon rises, the hunter's sadistic game spirals into chaos. Lucas, a cunning werewolf himself, seeks to turn the tables. In a heart-pounding chase, alliances shift, and the hunter becomes the hunted. Shadows lurk, teeth glint, and howls echo. Welcome to the Blood Moon Hunt, where survival is a luxury, and every heartbeat could be your last. Chapter 1. The hunt begins. The moon hung ominously in the sky, a perfect orb, casting a ghostly hue over the sprawling countryside. The gentle rustling of leaves in the wind was the only sound that broke the eerie silence of the night. In the heart of these woods, a desperate figure darted through the underbrush, his breath coming in ragged gasps. David, a young man from the nearby village, had been snatched from his mundane life into a nightmare he could hardly comprehend. The terror in David's eyes was palpable as he stumbled over roots and ducked under low-hanging branches. His mind raced with fear, yet a singular thought pierced through the panic. He must escape. The full moon above seemed to mock his plight, illuminating just enough to reveal the shadowy figure that relentlessly pursued him. Behind him, the sound of heavy, measured steps grew ever closer. The werewolf, a monstrous creature of nightmare, moved with a predatory grace that belied its savage intent. Its glowing eyes were fixed on its prey, and its low growls echoed through the forest like a death knell. David's heart pounded in his chest as he pushed his tired legs to move faster. He could hear the snapping of twigs and the guttural breaths of the beast closing in. In a fleeting moment of hope, he spotted a clearing ahead, but as he burst into the open space, his foot caught on a hidden root, sending him sprawling to the ground. The werewolf was upon him in an instant. David's screams pierced the night as the creature's claws tore into him, a gruesome end to a merciless chase. The forest swallowed his cries, returning once more to its unsettling silence. Miles away, in a lavishly decorated room within a grand estate, a group of well-dressed individuals gathered around a large screen displaying the grisly scene. Their faces were alight with twisted excitement as they witnessed the conclusion of their latest hunt. "Excellent performance tonight," remarked one man, his voice dripping with satisfaction as he sipped from a crystal glass. Another, a woman adorned in jewels, laughed heartily. "I must say, this was one of our best hunts yet." The fear in his eyes was almost palpable. The room was filled with the clinking of glasses and the rustling of money as bets were settled. They revelled in their cruel sport, oblivious to the horror they had wrought. On the screen, the werewolf stood over its fallen prey, its silhouette a haunting reminder of the darkness that resided in the hearts of those who watched. Unseen by the revelers, a figure lurked in the shadows of the room, his eyes fixed on the screen. He was the next chosen prey, yet unknown to his captors. He harbored a secret of his own. Beneath the facade of fear, a plan was taking shape, a plan for revenge and liberation. The game was about to change, and the hunters would soon become the hunted. Chapter 2: The Capture. 1 year earlier, under a somber sky, the secluded countryside was a scene of calculated chaos. A group of armed men and women, the elite hunters, moved through the dense forest with purpose and precision. They were on the trail of a creature more elusive and dangerous than any they had encountered before, a werewolf. Their leader, a grizzled man named Hawthorne, signaled for quiet as they neared a suspected lair. The air was thick with tension, each hunter keenly aware of the stakes. They had prepared for this moment, armed with silver bullets and a resolve as cold as the steel they carried. The werewolf, sensing the impending threat, emerged with a feral snarl. Its eyes glowed with a primal rage, and its fur bristled in the moonlight. The hunters opened fire, but the creature was swift, darting between trees with supernatural agility. In the ensuing chaos, two of the hunters found themselves too close to the beast. With swift, brutal efficiency, the werewolf lunged, its jaws snapping shut on the first hunter's throat in a spray of blood. The second hunter managed to fire a shot, but it was too late for him as well. The werewolf's claws raked across his chest, leaving him lifeless on the forest floor. The remaining hunters, fueled by a mix of fear and adrenaline, redoubled their efforts. Hawthorne, seeing an opening, took a well-aimed shot that struck the werewolf in the leg, slowing it just enough. They closed in, using specialized nets and tranquilizers to subdue the creature, finally capturing the howling, thrashing form. Once secured, the werewolf was transported to a hidden facility on the estate. Here, it was kept in a reinforced cage, a prisoner to their whims. The hunters had designed the cage to be both a cell and a spectacle, with one-way glass for observation. They took pleasure in watching the creature's futile attempts to escape, its ferocity a constant reminder of their triumph. As part of their twisted ritual, they would release the werewolf during the full moon, allowing it to regain a taste of freedom, only to be hunted again. Each month, they kidnapped an unsuspecting victim, releasing them into the forest for the werewolf to hunt. These hunts were a source of entertainment, a cruel game that satisfied their perverse desire for power and control. For the werewolf, each hunt was a torment, a reminder of its own captivity and the loss of its wild nature. It prowled the woods with a mix of desperation and rage, its instincts driving it to hunt, even as it yearned for true freedom. Back in the present, as the hunters reveled in their latest kill, the captured werewolf lay in its cage, its eyes reflecting a deep, unspoken hatred. It had endured a year of this hellish existence, but unknown to its captors, the tide was about to turn. The arrival of the new prey, a werewolf like itself, promised a chance for revenge and liberation. The hunters had become complacent in their game, but they were about to learn that even the most controlled beasts could break free. Chapter 3. The Unlikely Prey. The night air was crisp as the full moon cast its silvery glow over the sprawling estate. The group of affluent hunters gathered in their usual fashion, eager for the evening's entertainment. Their latest victim, a man in his 30s, was roughly escorted into their midst. His clothes were worn and his appearance unkempt, marking him as a wanderer who had been roaming the countryside. "Meet our latest contestant, folks," announced Hawthorne with a sneer. "No one will miss this bum." Laughter rippled through the group as they scrutinized their new prey. "Doesn't look like much. I bet 5 minutes." Another hunter chimed in, eyeing the man dismissively. The wanderer, whom they would come to know as Lucas, stood silently amidst the taunts and jibes. He seemed almost indifferent to his predicament, an attitude that only fueled their mockery. "I could do better than this tramp," boasted a well-rounded man, puffing out his chest in false bravado. "And I think I could beat him with my fists," declared another, eliciting a round of laughter. Lucas took note of each comment, his eyes calmly scanning the faces of his captors. Yet, he said nothing, his silence a stark contrast to the boisterous arrogance around him. As the time for the hunt approached, "All right, tramp, here's the deal. If you can make it off this estate, you're free. But remember," he added with a sinister grin, "there's something out there that's been waiting for you, and it's not as forgiving as we are." The hunters erupted in laughter as they explained the electronic tag on the werewolf designed to shock it if it tried to cross the estate's boundaries. They were confident in their control over the beast and the game. With a dismissive gesture, they released Lucas into the night. He walked calmly, almost casually, into the dark woods that bordered the estate. The hunters watched with amusement, placing bets on how long he would last. As Lucas disappeared into the shadows, the mood among the hunters was one of anticipation mixed with derision. They retreated to their viewing room, ready to enjoy the spectacle they believed was about to unfold. But Lucas was no ordinary man. As he ventured deeper into the woods, there was a subtle shift in his demeanor. His steps became more assured, his senses heightened. Unbeknownst to his captors, Lucas harbored a secret that would soon turn the hunter's game on its head. The night was far from over, and the true hunt was just beginning. Chapter 4. The Turn of the Tide. In the opulent viewing room, the group of wealthy hunters gathered around the large TV screen, their eyes fixed on the CCTV network
that covered their entire estate. The cameras, strategically placed to capture every moment of the hunt, flickered to life as Lucas was released into the woods. The anticipation in the room was palpable, a mix of sadistic pleasure and excitement. As the werewolf was released, a cheer erupted from the group. Glasses were raised in a twisted toast to the impending carnage. The creature, a mass of muscle and fur, bounded into the forest with a ferocity that thrilled its audience. The screens showed Lucas moving swiftly through the estate, his every step monitored by the unblinking eyes of the cameras. Remarkably, he seemed acutely aware of their presence, his gaze piercing into each lens he passed, as if sending a message directly to his captors. The hunters were ecstatic as the werewolf quickly picked up Lucas's trail. They shouted and screamed with joy, relishing the suspense of the chase. Lucas darted through the trees, his movements becoming increasingly desperate as the beast drew closer. Then, in a moment that stunned the room into silence, Lucas stopped. He turned towards a nearby camera, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "What's this fool doing?" one of the hunters muttered, unable to comprehend the sudden change. "Look!" a woman shouted, pointing at the screen. Before their disbelieving eyes, Lucas began to transform. His body convulsed and expanded, bones reshaping and muscles bulging. Fur sprouted across his skin, and his face elongated into a lupine snout. His eyes, now glowing with a primal ferocity, locked onto the camera. The hunters watched, frozen in shock, as Lucas completed his transformation into a towering lichen, far larger and more imposing than the werewolf they had released. He stood there, growling at the camera, a defiant challenge to his erstwhile hunters. The werewolf, previously in pursuit, approached cautiously, but instead of attacking, Lucas walked up to it, and with a powerful motion, ripped the controlling collar off the creature. The two werewolves then stood side by side, their eyes fixed on the camera, their posture one of mockery and rebellion. In the viewing room, the atmosphere shifted from excitement to fear. The hunters realized, with a growing sense of dread, that they were no longer the ones in control. The two werewolves, now free of their constraints, turned away from the camera and disappeared into the night. A heavy silence fell over the hunters. The realization that their game had turned against them was a bitter pill to swallow. They had unwittingly unleashed two powerful and vengeful creatures upon their estate. The hunters had become the hunted, and the night was far from over. Chapter 5. The Hunters Hunted. Pandemonium erupted in the viewing room as the reality of their perilous situation dawned on the hunters. Accusations flew, voices rose in panic and fear, and fingers pointed in blame. The once cohesive group of elite thrill-seekers quickly devolved into a chaotic mob, pushing and shoving, their facade of sophistication crumbling under the weight of their impending doom. The ruckus was abruptly silenced by a chilling howl that resonated through the walls of the estate, sounding perilously close. The hunters froze, their eyes wide with the terror. "They're coming," a man whispered, his voice trembling. Outside, the two werewolves, Lucas and his newly freed companion, moved with purpose and stealth, their senses heightened. They easily tracked their prey, their every step bringing them closer to the hunters. Inside the estate, the hunters scrambled to arm themselves, their previous confidence shattered, but they were not prepared for the cunning and ferocity of their attackers. One by one, the werewolves isolated and targeted the hunters, especially those who had mocked Lucas. Lucas, in his lichen form, was a sight to behold, a towering beast, fueled by rage and a thirst for vengeance. He remembered every taunt, every jeer, every bet placed on his life. Now it was his turn to hunt. The estate became a hunting ground. The tables turned in a nightmarish reversal. The hunters found themselves pursued through the very corridors,
where they had once gloated over their cruel game. The werewolves were relentless, their attacks brutal and efficient. One by one, the hunters fell prey to the werewolves. Each encounter was vicious, a feral display of strength and primal wrath. The screams of the hunters echoed through the estate, a stark contrast to the laughter and cheers that had filled the room earlier. Lucas, with each hunter he targeted, unleashed his pent-up fury, his attacks a manifestation of the injustice and cruelty he had endured. His companion, equally enraged by its captivity and torment, was a whirlwind of claws and teeth. As dawn approached, the once grand estate lay in eerie silence. The werewolves, having exacted their revenge, stood amidst the carnage. The hunters, who had taken so much pleasure in the fear and suffering of others, lay defeated, their reign of terror brought to a brutal end. The two werewolves, their eyes meeting in a silent understanding, turned away from the scene of their vengeance. They disappeared into the forest, leaving behind the shattered remnants of a game that had turned deadly. The hunters had been hunted, and the night of the blood moon hunt would be remembered as the night the hunted claimed their freedom. Chapter 6. A new hunt begins. Deep in the heart of the woods, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a dappled pattern on the forest floor, Lucas sat with a woman. Her name was Alara, a fellow werewolf with fierce spirit and a sharp wit. They sat in a clearing, the chaos of the night behind them, a moment of peace in their tumultuous lives. "It took you a long time," Alara said, her voice teasing, yet filled with an underlying note of admiration. Lucas turned to her, a smile playing on his lips. "They covered their tracks well," he replied, his eyes reflecting the satisfaction of their recent victory. "1 year, though?" Alara prodded, raising an eyebrow in mock incredulity. Lucas laughed, a deep, resonant sound that echoed through the trees. "Well, I did find them around 10 months ago, but I remembered how long it took you last time and wanted to make you pay for that." Her laughter joined his, a melodic counterpoint in the quiet forest. "Well, your turn next," she declared playfully. "I may wait 2 years for you," Lucas retorted, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "You couldn't wait that long for me," he replied, a teasing lilt in his voice. "I know," Alara admitted, her expression softening. She reached out, her hand gently caressing his cheek before pulling him in for a kiss. Their connection was deep, born of shared experiences and a bond that transcended their lichen nature. As they parted, Lucas's expression turned serious. "There's a new group of hunters," he said, his voice low. "I've been tracking them. They're different, more organized, more dangerous. I want to infiltrate their ranks." Alara's eyes narrowed, understanding the gravity of his words. "Your turn to get captured," she said, a hint of concern in her voice. "Yes," Lucas confirmed. "It's the best way to get inside, to understand their plans and ultimately to stop them." Alara nodded, her expression resolute. "Just make sure you come back to me," she said, her voice laced with a mix of seriousness and affection. Lucas reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I will. You know I always do." As they stood up, ready to leave the clearing, there was a sense of determination between them. They were part of a larger battle, one that went beyond their personal vendettas. Together, they were a formidable force. And as they disappeared into the forest, it was clear that their story was far from over. The hunt was just beginning, and this time, Lucas was the bait in a dangerous game that would test their strength, cunning, and the depth of their bond. Final chapter: The Captive Hunter. Months had passed since Lucas and Alara had devised their plan. Lucas had carefully tracked the movements of the new group of hunters, a formidable and secretive organization that had eluded even the most cunning of werewolves. Tonight, Under the cloak of darkness, Lucas's plan would come to fruition. In a secluded area of the forest, far from any prying eyes, the hunters had laid a trap, one that Lucas intentionally walked into. As he stepped into the clearing, the hunters emerged from their hiding spots, their weapons trained on him. The moment they had been waiting for had arrived. "We got it!" one of the hunters shouted, a triumphant grin on his face. "We finally got a werewolf." The hunters moved swiftly, their years of training evident in their coordinated efforts. They subdued Lucas with a combination of tranquilizers and restraints, ensuring that their prized catch would not escape. As they bound him, their excitement was palpable, a mix of adrenaline and a sense of achievement at capturing such a rare and dangerous creature. Lucas, despite his seemingly precarious situation, wore an expression that was incongruent with his capture. A smile, subtle yet unmistakable, played on his lips. It was a look of mockery, a silent message that he was not the helpless prey they believed him to be. The hunters, oblivious to the true nature of their captive, celebrated their success. They boasted of their skill and fortitude, unaware that they had played right into Lucas's hands. This capture was not a defeat for him, but the first step in a larger plan. As they transported Lucas away from the forest, his smile remained. In his eyes, there was a glint of determination and a hint of the cunning that had always defined him. He knew what was to come, and he was ready for it. The final chapter closed on a scene of apparent triumph for the hunters, but the reality was far more complex. Lucas, now a captive, was exactly where he needed to be. In the heart of the enemy's lair, he would uncover their secrets, dismantle their operations from within, and emerge victorious once more. The game had changed, and Lucas was one step ahead, a hunter in the guise of the hunted. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If your thirst for the unknown and the unexplained is still unquenched, I invite you to delve deeper into the abyss of terror. Just beyond the veil of reality, another story awaits to send shivers down your spine. Dare to join me in the next video, where the unknown becomes known and the unseen seen. Until then, keep the lights dim and your mind open. This is Professor Shadow, signing off.